Welcome to the final video in our basic ArtCAM Express training series. This video is going to focus on how to import and create a machining toolpath with a 3D model. So once again, we have ArtCAM Express open. We're going to start off by clicking on New Model. As we've done in the previous projects, we're setting our material size at 12 inches by 12 inches with our origin position or our start point at the top left corner. The resolution does become a factor now because we will be working with a 3D model, and we are going to set it at roughly 1000 by 1000, working in inches, and we're going to click OK to start up this project. And again, our material shows up in the center of our screen. We just want to make sure that our zero coordinates intersect in the top left corner, which is what we want. We're going to use a function up here in this section called Relief Clipart Library. So there are over 600 relief images already built into ArtCAM Express. Included with your machine, there's also a disk that has over 500 grayscale 3D models, high resolution grayscale 3D models, which also can be used. In addition to that, you also have access to all sorts of resources online, things like websites that would include vectorclip3d.com, vectorart3d.com. These are purchasable 3D models that are acquired from websites. There are several of them. There's probably way more than I've even mentioned to you, but basically either by subscription service or through purchasing individual 3D models, you can purchase 3D models for anywhere from $5 or $6 upwards of $25 or $30, depending on the complexity of the model. They're fully scalable models that can be imported into the software, and machining toolpath can be created. In this case, we're going to use one of the images from the Relief Clipart library. So if I click on Relief Clipart library, you'll see that they're all categorized. So in this case, I'm looking at the animals. There's something called the 3D Model Club here. We have banners. There's several different banners that we can choose. We can use bases. So there are different sort of a plaque base selection. We can look at crests and so on and so forth. So let's go into crests here and let's find something that looks kind of interesting. Let's look at this hawk's head. So you notice as I click on the hawk's head, down in the bottom left corner, there's little tiny hawk's head has showed up. And over here on the left, you can see that we have the width and the height and the Z range or the depth of this particular model. Now, all these coordinates are very small. This was probably a piece of jewelry, some sort of medallion perhaps when it was created. But because we're working in vectors and not bitmaps, there is no loss of detail when we make images larger or smaller. Now you can see that the maintain aspect ratio has linked just the width and the height together. If I click on this, you can see that I have the option to click to link the width, the height, and the Z range or the thickness together. Click on it one more time, and it disconnects them all, so they are now independent of each other. I'm going to typically use the width and height and maintain the aspect ratio with those. I typically like to set the Z range based on the material thickness that I'm going to be using for this particular project. So I'm going to change the width of this particular one to say 8 inches, and as you can see, it's 8 by just a little bit larger than 8, and I'm going to change the Z range to 1/2 inch. So I'd like to machine this project to 1/2 inch depth. And I'm going to click apply, and you can see that the outline of our image has changed in size. I'm going to center it in the middle of our model, so there is the outline of it. Now there's also one other option here, which is called Relief Clipart Paste Options. I want to just show you this really quickly. You can see that there are several options here, adding, subtracting, merging high and low. These typically only refer to if you're working with more than one model. So if I was adding 2 models where they were going to intersect, this would merge them. This would add one on top of the other. In other words, one would sort of climb up over top of the other. This would subtract it, so it would actually create almost like a mold, everything in reverse. This would merge it high so that the 2 highest points on the 2 models would meet, and then of course merge low, the 2 lowest points on the model would meet. And then the other option that I have is to paste the outline vector, and if I do that, then I'm going to have basically a vector that kind of borders my image. If I wanted to cut the part out, that would be particularly important. In this case I'm not, but it doesn't hurt to have that outline vector. So I'm going to click add, although it doesn't really matter. I just like to, as a general rule of thumb, use the add just so that I have something selected. Because typically if I'm using 2 models, a lot of times I want to add one on top of the other. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom and I'm going to click paste. And now you didn't really see anything happen, but right here there is something called Toggle Relief Preview. And as you see, if I click on it, it shows me what that 3D model is going to look like. I can also go to the 3D view, and you can see that there is the model, and I can rotate it and kind of take a look at it from several different angles. Now, you'll notice that there is no material thickness at this point. It's not showing any thickness of the material because we've not established any material thickness. So it's just sort of sitting there on top of the material at this point until we give the software a little bit more information. I'm going to close this Relief Clipart library. Now, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to take a rectangle and I'm going to draw it around our hawk's head, and I'm going to center that. And you'll see why I did that in a few minutes. So let's just say that this is the entire project. We want to machine this hawk's head, maybe make it into some sort of decorative plaque. So I'm now going to go over here to the Toolpaths side. I'm going to click on Toolpaths. Now, in the previous projects, we looked at all the 2D toolpath operations, but we're not working in 2D now. We're working in 3D. And you can see here in 3D, we only have two options. Create Machine Relief Toolpath and a laser machining toolpath. In this case, we are doing a machine relief toolpath, so I'm going to click on that. And you see that I have the option here at the top of whole relief. Now, if I selected whole relief, what it will do is it will machine away all of this area all the way to the outer edges of my material, in this case 12 by 12. The problem here is this. If my material is in fact 12 by 12, and I machine this down to a 1/2 inch, it means I'm going to have the tool come to the outer edge. In fact, it's going to slightly over machine this outer edge. And if I have a clamp on the right hand side, or I have the fence of the machine on the left, then I potentially look at damaging my tool or my machine because I'm going to machine those clamps and that fence. And I don't want that to happen. So the reason I created that rectangle was I'm going to change the whole relief to selected vectors. And you see here, it gives me the option to machine inside or outside the vector. So in this case, I'm going to machine inside the vector. So now what I'm saying is that I want to machine inside this border, but I do not want to machine out here. So if I wanted this to be a 12 by 12 project, then I might start with a 13 by 13 piece of material, create a 12 by 12 rectangle, and when I'm done, if I don't want that outer border, I can trim that off with my table saw. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Finishing Options and select the finishing tool that I want to use. Now, you can use any ball nose cutter to do finishing on a 3D model. This actually is a ball nose cutter, this iCarver conical V-bit 1/32. This 1/32 engraving tool is exactly the same tool, it's just described a little bit differently. But I can use that tool. I could also use an 1/8 inch ball nose, or I could use a 1/4 inch ball nose. And the rule of thumb is this. If you've got a project that has very, very fine detail, this has some fairly intricate detail, although it's not a super detailed image, then I could use a fine tool like the 1/32 radius bit to machine it. If I was doing something that just has contours and shapes, like a dish or a bowl, or something that doesn't have a lot of fine detail, then I might use a larger tool, maybe go to the 1/4 inch ball nose. In this case, I'm going to use this conical 1/32 tool, and I'm going to select that. And then I'm going down here to my roughing options, and I'm going to select a roughing tool because I don't want to do this whole project with a 1/32 tool. I want to clear some area out. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill to clear out the larger areas, and then let the 1/32 come in and do the final finish pass. I'm going to just do a quick check of my safe and home coordinates to make sure that they're okay. And you can see that I've got this set, my safe Z at 0.5. I want to change that to 0.2 inches. I don't need the tool to lift any higher than 0.2 inches above the material. The only time you'd set these at higher coordinates, the safe and the home Z, is if you were working on a project where perhaps you had a clamp that was in the way. Maybe you've got a clamp that's holding maybe you've got two projects sitting side by side and there's a clamp in between, and you might need the tool to lift up over those clamps. That would be the only time I'd change the safe Z. Now, you can see with our material setup, what I just clicked on, you see that by default, the material Z0 is set at the bottom of the block. And I don't want that. I want that at the top because I want to be able to touch off the top of the material to establish the start point of this project. And I'm going to set my material thickness. Let's just say that our material thickness in this particular project is 3/4 of an inch. So you can see in the illustration here, it's showing you exactly what's going on. The dark gray area is the machined area. That's where we will machine the 3D model. The light gray area will not get machined at all. It's going to be leaving 1/4 of an inch of material behind. And we're going to click Calculate. And you'll see that it's going to take some time to calculate this toolpath because there is a fair bit of machining going on here. So sometimes it can take a few seconds to calculate that. And now we've calculated our toolpath. Let's close the machine relief window and let's do a simulation. So as you can see, here's the roughing toolpath, and that happened fairly quickly, but the final finish toolpath using this very fine carving tool will take a little bit longer. And again, I have my resolution on my simulation set very high so that it's a good clean simulation. So the simulation is critically important because it gives you an opportunity to see exactly what you're going to machine before you machine it. So all of your mistakes are made on the screen and not at your machine. You never want to be making mistakes at the machine because now you're dealing with time and material, neither of which you want to waste. So it's always good to make sure that you double check with your simulation to make sure it's exactly what you want it to be. So now let's just zoom in. And we'll just give this a little rotation, and you can see that we've created a very nice 3D model. You can see there's some very good detail in this. And we are now ready to create the toolpath for that. So we, once again, toolpath is already selected. We go down to Save Toolpath. And again, you see, as we did in Project 3, you can see that we've got 2 toolpaths. One is the roughing toolpath and one the finishing toolpath, and that's not a problem. We can save those as a single file, and our machine is going to tell us which tool we want to use and when we want to use it, and we will save that. And that NC file can now go to our machine, and we're ready to machine this project. So we've covered off in our training workshop the basic getting started video, which covered off the sort of the basic function of the software. Then we went on to the basic use of the geometry tools, which was Project 2. Then Project 3, we covered bitmap to vector conversion. And then finally here in Project 4, we've covered how to import and machine a 3D model. So essentially, most of the functionality of ArtCAM Express is the combination of those 3 fundamental skills. The key to success with your iconic machine and ultimately the software as well is being able to master those skills. So if you find after creating these 3 projects and going through the video series, you're still finding that you're struggling, best suggestion I can make is go back, start again, maybe go through those projects again, maybe focus on the one that's giving you the most trouble. Do it several times till you get the fundamentals down. Once you've got those fundamentals mastered, you'll find that learning additional skills in ArtCAM Express really not that difficult. It really is just making sure that you've got those foundations. So I hope you've enjoyed this video series for basic ArtCAM Express functionality. If you have any questions at all, if there's some things that you are struggling with, you can reach us by email. It's either Steve or Jeremy at iconiccnc.com. You can call us on our toll-free number, 1-800-288-2961. That's again, 1-800-288-2961. Or you can use our website, iconiccnc.com, where you can submit an online support request. You can submit files to us for analysis, and we're happy to review those files with you, see if we can determine where the problems lie, whether it's a machine-related issue, design-related issue, doesn't matter. Just let us know what you're struggling with. We're here to help, and our goal, as always, is to make sure that you have an excellent and wonderful experience in using your both your software and your iconic CNC machine. So thank you very much for watching this video series, and any comments that you can give us on how we can improve your user experience. We're always available to listen, and we look forward to working with you for years to come.